name is Joel, and today we're doing a bit of a project update on my 1991 940 SE. It is summer, and you can hear the cicadas, and it is warm, and I'm only out here because it's the morning. So I wanted to give you kind of an update on some little things I've been working on this car and show you what we are doing next. So you can see, one thing I've done is we've got a piece of chrome trim on the ground. This is the old trim, very faded. Had a AAA sticker on it. I didn't love that. That brown spot in the middle is actually where the chrome is faded off. So I got this one from a junkyard, and it's in pretty good shape. It's cleaner than the one I took off. This bumper isn't totally refit yet. I've still got a couple of little things to work out, but overall I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And we also did new sway bar end links and a bigger sway bar. So you can't really tell, obviously, from the camera, but this is a 23 millimeter. I had a 21 millimeter on it, and I got the 23 from a junkyard car. So, hot tip, if you're ever taking one of these off, just make sure you get those bushings that go with it and the brackets that go over the bushings, just to make sure if you're going to a larger size that they fit, because not all the brackets and bushings will fit going from one size to another. And let's see, what else did we do? We took off the throttle body, and we took off the idle air control valve, and I'm going to be going through the process of cleaning them. But the main thing I wanted to show you is that we have got an upper oil leak. Now, I knew about this, and when I was getting in here, I basically expected that I would find something in the area of the breather box. I didn't really know how bad it was going to be. I'm going to see if I can give you a view as to what that looks like. So we got oil all over the breather box. Those two bolts are going to be really easy to get to because I took off my throttle body. But the interesting thing is the oil's not just at the bottom and all around, but it's also appears to be as high as up top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take off the breather box, and then I'm going to see how bad it is, see if we got any cracked plastic or anything like that, and then I will show it on camera and we will talk about our next steps. So here's our breather box. I did wipe it off and confirm it is a Volvo part. It doesn't actually look that bad, and if we flip it over, the O-ring doesn't look crazy flattened or anything. I don't think you can see in there very well. It's not really that dirty. I mean, not compared to some of what I've seen online, but I think I found the problem. Let's take a look. And here's the culprit. This little flame trap hose in the little S shape. This has been pulled out from where it goes behind the intake, and you can see there is a little split at the top of it. You can also see it's covered in oil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy a new hose, buy new green O-ring, and I will continue to use the crankcase breather box that is on the car because it looks great. I can also wipe down the engine block, get all the oil cleaned off, and Bob's your uncle. So here's the side of the engine block after I've removed the breather box. What you can't really see is that blue towel is stuffed into two different openings. One is the tube that goes down into drains the oil down into the pan, and then the other is the opening into the engine block where the crankcase vapors actually come up from. So I'm going to clean this stuff off camera. I'm not going to film that, but I just want to point this out. There's a lot of crap back here, and when you are cleaning it off, just be careful. If you want to go ahead and spray something like this with degreaser and it does go down into the crankcase, just go ahead and make sure you change your oil before you fire it up. Okay, and so I am all done cleaning this area up. I gave this a good old-fashioned quick cleaning with some degreaser and a toothbrush. I made sure not to get anything down into the actual holes that go down into the block or into the oil pan. So I'm happy with that turned out. And I also cleaned a little bit over here on the engine block as well, just to kind of get it a little bit uniform and make it easier to find oil leaks in the future. So I'm pleased enough with that, and I'm going to go ahead and get this breather box put back in place and then get our hose installed, and we will be on our way. And it is now installed back in place. You see the two screws there, and I made sure that my O-ring did not fall out. And I will try and show you the hose that comes in from the top. You can see the large fat hose right here, and then that goes into your basically your flame trap box, breather box. And there's no actual flame trap itself because this is a turbo car, but that connects to the little hose that I replaced that I showed you earlier that had a crack in it. So everything is back in place. And incidentally, I am also doing a throttle body cleaning and idle air control valve cleaning. So I have done those cleanings, and I will go ahead and install those back in, and we'll see how everything runs. Hello. We are way smushed underneath my car, so I can show you the shift linkage. This is a hole where there's supposed to be a bushing, and there is not one in the front either. And I just happen to have two in stock. Yay! And there we go. So this is the front one. Got the little rubber bushing thing in place, and I got one in the back installed as well. Let's see if that shifter still moves all sloppy-doppy like it did before. All right, so I know I failed to show this to you beforehand, but this shifter would just move and wiggle like crazy before you even pushed any buttons to change gear. And now, yes, just as God intended. I can't wait to drive it. And one last thing before I forget, during this batch of maintenance, I'm going to replace this egg crate grill, which is in so-so shape. Got some peeling, fading, things like that, with this one, which is better, somewhat. Enough better for me to go ahead and make the swap, and I will keep the other one as a spare. Alright, so we now have a very nice steady idle in the ballpark of 800 to 850 RPM. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this off, and I'm going to show you how I adjusted the idle to get it the way I wanted. I'd like to give everybody a crash course in adjusting the idle on your red block, because it took me some time to really get this figured out. So first of all, this is a vacuum line on the end of the cruise control. I'm just going to take that off. This cruise control unit is unbolted. You're going to need to remove this. So I just lay that over there. And that cruise control unit has a 13mm nut that you'll use a wrench to get to. And the reason you're doing that is because you need to get to your throttle position switch. Basically, this is an on-off switch that says when your foot presses the gas to let the car know, so it's basically exiting idle mode, and it'll allow you to run and apply fuel and all that. So you have your barrel here, which is at rest, and you turn it clockwise. You can actually hear my switch. Anyways, if you hear the click, I know it's really quiet. But you've also got this throttle linkage right here, and then way down here you have, let me see if I can point it out. This is an adjuster nut, and on the other end is basically the threaded rod that is your throttle stop. So as you can see, when I turn this, throttle stop lands on that screw, okay? So here's what you need to do. If you have a low idle, you want to basically loosen the two screws. There's one here on the throttle position switch, and there's one on the back side. That's going to be a Torx bit. And then you're going to want to potentially, if you feel the need to, you can disconnect this rod. It's a little plastic thing that pops off, and you can take the ball out of the socket. And then you can actually get a small, I used a 1/4-inch drive, 8mm socket on the adjuster nut. Basically, you're going to loosen that nut, and you're going to turn the threaded rod one direction or another direction. Obviously, if you thread it further up, you're going to push the throttle plate open more, give you a higher idle, which is what I did. The reason you want to disconnect everything else is because you need your throttle position switch to be loosey-goosey, so it's not stopping the movement of all this stuff. And then you want to adjust this rod after you have basically gotten your base idle where you want it. Now, there is another process that I will mention It is the factory process where they say you need to clamp off this hose and you need to adjust that threaded rod that I pointed out by basically adjusting it so that it's at 500 RPM. That is your base idle. And then the rest of your idle air is coming through the idle air control valve. So I apologize if I'm not perfectly explaining exactly how the system works, but the key point I wanted to make is you have to do this stuff in a certain order, because this linkage adjusts your free play, and that threaded rod adjusts basically how open your throttle plate is at rest. And then your throttle position switch is going to be affected by those things, so you want to do that last. So in my case, who knows, maybe I'll decide my idle's a little too high. I'll probably come back here, disconnect this rod, and then I'll go ahead and adjust the threaded, the threaded rod if I need to for the base idle. So when you turn the barrel, more or less, as soon as this comes off, you should be seeing that linkage right there should start to move. You should have a little free play, right? But mine has a little free play. You can work it to whatever free play you feel comfortable with, but the key is your throttle position switch. You need to hear the click just as you come off of idle, just as it starts to move. So that's your quick and dirty. I hope somebody found that helpful, because it took me some time to get that sorted. I'm very pleased because that is the last thing I'm doing in this bit of maintenance. And as you can see, it's now morning time. It's now several days later. There's my wife on her way to work, and we are all done with our maintenance. So thanks everybody for watching, and have a great week.